Her eyes had started to shine differently, not with the joy of shared moments or closeness, but with something distant, something he could no longer reach. At first, it seemed random, staying a little late at work, laughing quietly at her phone, leaving his questions unanswered. He didn't think much of it. She was tired, overwhelmed, maybe just trying to unwind. But day by day she was slipping away, as if rehearsing a life where he no longer had a place. And then she said it. The reunion. 10 years. And something in her voice, in the sparkle of her eyes, in the way she said the name Darren. It spoke louder than any confession ever could. He watched her get ready. The dress, the makeup, the hair, the walk that now carried purpose. But not for him, not for them, for something that had long lived inside her, something that never included him. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. I noticed the change in Sabrina well before she ever mentioned the reunion. It started subtly, so minor at first it barely registered. Her evenings began stretching longer, and when she finally made it home, her eyes barely left her phone. She'd sit there beside me, laughing quietly at messages I couldn't see, her fingers tapping away while I faded into the background. I chalked it up to stress, maybe a group chat helping her decompress after a demanding stretch at work. We all need a bit of distraction sometimes. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. So I didn't push. I let it be. Then, one evening, while stirring something on the stove, she casually brought it up. "Can you believe it's been 10 years, Daniel?" she said. "The college reunion's coming up. Everyone's gonna be there." She made it sound like an exciting escape. I nodded, said it might be fun to see familiar faces again. She smiled at that, but it didn't feel like it was meant for me. Her mind had already drifted somewhere far beyond our kitchen. From then on, the reunion became her new obsession. She bought new clothes, experimented with hairstyles, and spent weekends preparing with a kind of energy she hadn't shown since before our last anniversary. One night over dinner, I watched her across the table, that same glow in her eyes, and asked, "You're really going all out for this thing, huh?" She laughed lightly. "I just want to look good. It's been ages since I've seen any of them." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "You want me to come with you?" I offered. Her fork froze for a second before she answered, "It's mostly just people from school. You'd probably be bored." Bored. Like my being there would weigh her down. I tried to brush it off, but something about the way she said it stung deeper than I expected. Maybe it was nerves, or just the idea of rekindling old friendships. But deep inside, something knotted up. I couldn't name it at the time, not exactly. But she wasn't just reminiscing. She was preparing for something more, and I was too blind to understand what that meant. The night of the reunion, she descended the stairs looking like a stranger stepping into a different world. Her dress, a sleek, midnight blue number I'd never seen before, clung to her like it had been tailored just for this moment. Her heels were tall enough that she moved carefully, and her makeup was flawless in a way that felt almost deliberate. She looked incredible. I let out a soft whistle and told her so. She didn't even glance my way. "Thanks," she replied, adjusting her earrings, her gaze fixed on the mirror. I tried again. "Still sure you don't want me to come with you?" Her pause was brief but telling. "Just old friends," she said, clutching her purse. "You'd be out of place." I nodded, but inside, something gave way. This wasn't about nostalgia. This wasn't nerves. This was intentional, meant to keep me out. When the door closed behind her, I waited a few minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. She drove across town to a familiar bar. I parked far enough away to stay unseen and watched from a distance. Sabrina arrived first. She stood at the entrance scanning the crowd until she saw him. Her entire demeanor shifted, like someone flipped a switch. His name was Darren. They'd gone to school together. I remembered him vaguely, a name mentioned in passing, never with detail. They embraced for longer than friends typically do. That hug wasn't awkward or formal, it was second nature. Inside, they sat shoulder to shoulder at the bar, laughing, leaning in, disappearing into their own world. She brushed his arm when she talked, twirled her hair, expressions and gestures I hadn't seen from her in months. After about an hour, they stepped outside together. I trailed them from a distance, ducking behind parked cars. Under the dim light of a flickering street lamp, Darren pulled her close and kissed her. Not a shy, hesitant kiss, a slow, confident one. The kind that only familiarity breeds, the kind that comes after repetition, after history. I lifted my phone and took a few quiet photos. Just enough. They pulled apart, smiling like no one else existed. Then they climbed into his car and disappeared down the road. I watched their taillights fade into the dark like the last glimmer of a life I no longer recognized. I didn't feel fury. I didn't feel disbelief. What settled in me was colder, heavier. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't a mistake. The way she moved with him, the ease between them, it all pointed to something well established. Every late night, every distracted smile, every vague excuse, it all belonged to this. I drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts beyond the quiet repetition of that kiss playing over in my mind. It was almost laughable. Weeks of second-guessing myself, wondering if I was imagining it all. And in just 1 hour, it became undeniable. When I pulled into the driveway, I felt no panic, no surge of emotion. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was simply done. The house looked unchanged. Porch light on, her coat still hanging by the door, but everything felt hollow, like walking into a hotel room just after the guest has checked out. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my phone. The pictures were clear, undeniable. Her smile when she saw him, the way she leaned into him like she belonged there. The look in her eyes, like she wasn't betraying me, but had already left. As if I was the one clinging to a chapter she'd quietly closed. Some betrayals come with confusion. Some leave room for excuses. This wasn't one of them. A brief embrace now and then, the occasional text, but never that final boundary. I never had to confront her. There was no need for raised voices or dramatic scenes. Sabrina had already made her decision. She just hadn't spoken it aloud yet. At first light, she stumbled through the front door, barefoot, mascara smudged, hair tangled in a way that told the whole story. She hadn't been home, not all night. I stood silently at the top of the staircase, watching her float through the entryway like a stranger. She didn't even glance in my direction. Her keys dropped onto the kitchen counter with a soft clink, her shoes hit the floor next, and she collapsed onto the couch like it was just another morning. I observed for a moment longer before turning away and heading back to bed. There was no heartbreak in seeing her that way, just a sharp, undeniable truth. Detached, spent, unbothered. Our marriage hadn't been unraveling, it had already unraveled. All that remained was for me to quietly exit the final pages she had started writing without me. But I didn't walk out that morning. That would have been too kind. I needed her to feel it, to notice the emptiness creeping in, little by little. So I waited. And while I waited, I made quiet moves in the background. I secured a small apartment clear across town. It wasn't extravagant. Just a simple place, fully furnished, blank walls, no past attached. I opened a separate bank account and began shifting my paychecks there in steady, careful increments. No dramatics, no sudden moves, nothing to alert her. Sabrina continued wading through her fantasy. Late nights, secretive smiles, endless stories about clients and girls' nights that no longer held up under scrutiny. She suspected nothing. I waited until she was comfortable, sipping wine across the table, scrolling through her phone as we ate. "I thought I saw Darren the other day," I said casually, forking a piece of chicken. She stiffened, only for a heartbeat, but I saw it. "Darren?" she echoed, stalling. "Wow, I haven't seen him in ages." I wiped my mouth with a napkin, keeping my tone neutral. "Didn't he show up at the reunion?" Her head shook a bit too quickly. No, he didn't go." I gave her a faint smile. Of course he didn't. Not officially, anyway. Not unless we count the night you vanished into the dark with him behind a parked car. I let it slide. No accusations, no probing. Just shifted the conversation and let her slide back into her lie. That weekend, while she pretended to be out shopping, I packed up the rest of what I needed. Some clothes, my important documents, a few old photographs I still wasn't ready to throw away. Everything else, I left it behind. The house hadn't felt like home in a long time. It was just a structure now. Before I stepped out for the last time, I took off my wedding band and placed it next to her half-finished glass of wine on the counter. That said enough. When Sabrina came back, she'd find the closet half empty, my keys still on their hook by the door, and the ring sitting there. Quiet, deliberate. No argument, no tears, just absence. And if there was still any honesty left in her, even a sliver, she'd understand what that silence meant. That evening, she walked through the door like it was any other night. From the shadows of my car parked down the block, I watched her approach, heels dangling from one hand, purse slung lazily over her shoulder, eyes glowing at her phone like the world hadn't changed. She stepped inside. The door shut behind her. 30 seconds passed. Then the porch light flickered on. She rushed outside again, glancing wildly into the yard like she half expected me to be waiting, ready to forgive, ready to forget. But I wasn't. Not tonight. Not ever. Her calls came in waves. My personal phone rang first, then my work line. When neither got a reply, she started calling my brother, Caleb. I let them all go unanswered. I wanted her to pace that house, the one she once filled with warmth, and feel it echo back cold, hollow, abandoned. Later that night, Caleb called. "You want me to handle this?" he asked, hearing the knocks pounding at his front door. "I've got it," I replied. When I pulled up, she was under the porch light, arms wrapped tightly around herself, like she might shatter if she let go. Her face was streaked with tears and the remnants of makeup, and there was a vacant look in her eyes, the kind that comes from nights without sleep. "Daniel," she said, her voice raw, frayed. "Please, just talk to me." I didn't move. I looked at her evenly. "You lied," I said, calm but firm, over and over again. She shook her head desperately. "It was a mistake," she gasped. "It didn't mean anything." A bitter laugh slipped out, not because I found it funny, but because I couldn't believe how easily she said it. "You kissed him like you were 17, I said. "You got into his car. You disappeared until morning. That's not a mistake, Sabrina. That's a choice." She broke then, sobbing openly, no longer trying to hold it back. "I love you," she whispered. I stared at her. "No. You loved the version of me who still trusted you." She reached for me, clutching at my coat like she could drag us back to before. I stepped away. "You already lost," I said quietly. "You just didn't realize it until tonight." Then I turned away, climbed back into my car, and drove off, leaving her there, in the cold, exactly where she chose to be. My new apartment was waiting. Second floor, peaceful, a view of the skyline, and not a single ghost. By the time the sun rose the next day, the divorce papers had already been delivered. I didn't wait around to witness her reaction. I didn't need to. Sabrina tried everything. She called, she sent texts, she even showed up unannounced at Caleb's place once more. I offered her nothing in return, just silence. The terms were straightforward. No drawn-out arguments about belongings, no tug of war over money. I didn't fight for the house. I didn't want the furniture. She could have all of it. What I truly needed was space, wide and clear. What I was really chasing was release. 2 weeks later, Mitchell called, one of the few mutual friends who stayed neutral through the fallout. "Did you hear about Sabrina?" he asked. "No," I said, my voice steady, unreadable. He hesitated before continuing. "She's not doing well. Stopped going to work. Hardly leaves the house. I've heard she barely gets out of bed anymore." I didn't respond. What was there to say? She'd lit the fuse herself. I just chose not to stop the detonation. 3 days later, the final divorce decree arrived in my mailbox. No note tucked inside, no farewell words, just her signature at the bottom, shaky and uncertain, like her hand wasn't sure how to end the story she started. That was the close of it. Unmistakable. Permanent. A few friends kept checking in, asking if I was holding up. Caleb checked more than most, always half expecting me to break. But there was no breakdown coming. No tears, no anger. The truth was far simpler. I wasn't mourning anything. I felt more unburdened than I had in years. Sabrina, on the other hand, she was stuck. She remained in that sprawling house, wandering through rooms with empty hangers and wine stains on the rug. Mitchell told me she dipped her toes into dating again, but nothing stuck. Maybe every face she saw reminded her of what she'd destroyed, and the man she'd gambled it all for. Some fires burn too hot to ever rebuild what they consume. I think eventually she realized that, but by then I was already too far gone to hear her crying from the wreckage. Starting fresh was easier than I had imagined. The apartment was small, creaky floors, a cramped kitchen where only one person could stand comfortably, but it was entirely mine. No shared closets, no framed memories on the shelves, no silent tension hanging in the air. Just peace. I took a new job downtown, low profile, quieter, removed from the pressure of corporate ambition. I started running again, joined a gym. My days began to fill with things that made me feel alive, not performative, not desperate for validation. The past loosened its grip on me quicker than I anticipated. Occasionally, Mitchell or Caleb would mention Sabrina in passing. "She's still in that house," Mitchell said one evening over drinks. "Folks say she looks worn down, like life caught up to her faster than she expected." I only nodded. Sabrina had clung to the past like it was a lifeline. She chased after what was gone until it became a prison. I never asked for updates. I didn't want revenge. She was already steeped in the consequences, waking up daily in a home built for two, with no one but her regrets for company. Sometimes I'd sit on my balcony with a beer in hand, gazing at the city lights blinking like quiet reassurances, thinking about the man I used to be. The one who waited up late, hoping she'd walk through the door. The one who believed that love, if poured out fully, would always be enough. I didn't hold resentment toward him. He was simply young, hopeful. Sometimes you have to lose the wrong person to learn what you're really worth. Sabrina's greatest failure wasn't that night with Darren in that dim parking lot. It wasn't the lies, or the sneaking around, or even the moment she chose to walk away from everything we built. Her real mistake was thinking I'd still be there when she finally turned back around. But I wasn't. I had already gone. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I wasn't hoping she'd catch up. I was just living. Light. Done. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.